unrecognized and underreported. Now more than ever, we must challenge the world to act. Each child has the right to be protected from any form of violence, abuse or neglect, and to enjoy all rights without any discrimination. Heads of states, leaders of international bodies, business world, and as well as youth leaders and civil society must reaffirm their personal commitment to the protection of children, who are the most vulnerable members of society. These leaders are in a unique position to influence opinions and actions in their home countries and regions, to build bridges between countries, regions, and cultures with a common goal of protecting the world's children from all forms of victimization and exploitation. The active participation of all members of society is needed for the effective protection of children. Effective legislation and law enforcement prevents formation of the environment in which they can easily target and victimize children. Emerging technologies and information networks require that legislation is kept abreast of such technologies and developments in order to counter newly developed threats. The vigilance and activism of individual citizens, youth, and civil societies is equally important. Civil societies can play a significant role in educating all members of the community about their shared responsibilities. The business community too must shoulder its part of responsibility. The companies which develop and market new technologies must be responsible for preventing abuse of financial information networks. Corporate responsibility demands that commercial innovations do not contribute to facilitating exploitation of children. Parents, educators, healthcare professionals, social workers, media professionals, religious leaders, and others who touch the lives of children every day should make an effort to be fully informed, take notice of early signs of abuse, and to fulfill their obligation, protect their children from any form of violence, abuse, or neglect. Children must also assume responsibility for protecting other children, especially those younger or more vulnerable. To remain silent in the face of evil is not a virtue, and young people must come forward when they become aware of possible exploitation of others. As we see from the reports presented on the item, despite the progress made in the sphere of promoting the rights of the children, the world still faces several obstacles and challenges, which includes children being used in the armed conflicts, challenges for the girls to access their education, loss of parents during the conflicts, and others. To maintain and further enhance the progress, vigorous efforts are still needed. Explicit legal ban on all forms of violence against children need to be scaled up, which will allow children to benefit from legal protection from all forms of violence in all settings. It's the year of 2011, and we as the global youth have made another step in our dedication to achieve the Millennium Development Goals. Even though the MDG were set more than 10 years ago, there is still a lot of things to be done, implemented, and achieved. Only together, hand in hand, we can achieve those goals and make the world a better place to live. One of the main tools of achieving those goals is education. It could break the poverty, decrease the violence, and lead to the prosperous and progressive world. By increasing the literacy of children throughout the world, we could achieve many successful results. Unfortunately, still an enormous number of children do not get even the primary education, and this happens in the center of the information technologies when the literacy equals to the basic needs, as without having basic education, it is impossible to get the flow of information, which is so vital nowadays. At the same time, education empowers. Educated women and young ladies will feel much stronger and with higher self-esteem, which will result in achieving equality and decrease the discrimination of women in different societies. Mr. Chairman, being an Azerbaijani youth representative, I am proud to say that on behalf of my country, that after obtaining independence early in the 1990s, Azerbaijan has done an enormous leap ahead in improving its social, economic, and political situation in my country. Having a major portion of its population being youth, policies and programs are always implemented with the youth in mind. For example, the youth employment, improvement of social and economic welfare of young people, support to young families through mortgages, help and aid is an illustration of care and support from the government of Azerbaijan. Mr. Chairman, one of the main problems of the youth, as well as our country in general, is the continuing occupation of almost 1/5 of Azerbaijani territories, which made every 9th person in the country a refugee or IDP. Out of the million refugees, a huge portion is children and young people. Many children have grown up in refugee camps or in crowded temporary accommodations, or had to move with their families to the capital city. A major effort has been made in the recent past to solve housing problems for the refugee and IDP population. However, they still face with different problems deriving from the aforementioned protracted conflict. For the last 20 years of the conflict, those children didn't get the required education, living in the constant stress, having the psychological trauma, and being far from their home. At the same time, living in the temporary refugee camps is not good for their health and mental improvement. I hope very soon resolution of the conflict will help those children to raise their own children as good citizens of the world, with a good quality education and global vision. Mr. Chairman, taking into consideration my speech as a sum up, I would like to propose following recommendations. Enact new improved legislation and review existing laws periodically to ensure effective modification of any form of exploitation of children. Make the eradication of child exploitation as a top priority. Join together in a global campaign to build greater awareness and to stimulate concerted action to protect the world's children. In conclusion, I would like to thank the government of my country, namely Minister of Foreign Affairs, State Committee for Diaspora, Azerbaijani Mission to the United Nations, and the United Nations itself for providing me with this opportunity to speak here today. I believe that the number of young people from different countries participating in the Youth Delegate program will constantly increase, and they will eventually become real and active partners of government in implementing global goals and commitments hand in hand. Thank you.